Good evening, folks. And tonight we're going to put about several scenarios into play. Now, I don't know exactly how many scenarios this would actually be. Maybe 3, possibly. Now, this has got to do with why Canada didn't become necessarily a state, or would we be a part of Canada if we didn't win the Revolutionary War, or if the Revolutionary War never really happened. I mean, this is literally what we gotta look at. Now, if you look at this map very carefully, this was prior to this is the French and Indian War. Okay. You see the orange, you see the blue, you see the blue and the red. A couple of those areas forgot to be mixed together. And you see the red, okay? Then you see that gray, okay? The very top, obviously, you know, is Canada. Alright. Now we'll discuss that map. The blue and the gray. The blue, mostly, is Canada / New France. At the time, the 13 colonies were the red, aka also part of Canada. Now, the red and the blue were the defended territories, were the questionable between the British and the French. The blue is all New France. And the orange is all Spanish claims. The red and the blue is defended on Spanish. French is between French and British claims. That would be like Eastern Tennessee, Western North Carolina, mostly all of Northwestern Georgia, and pretty much all of Alabama. Now, Florida is all Spanish territory, along with Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, parts of Utah, and parts of Colorado, and a little bit of Oklahoma, and a little bit of Kansas. Now, the French owned a lot of area. Parts of Ohio, all of Ohio, parts of West Virginia, parts of, excuse me here, parts of pretty much, well, Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, pretty much everything up and down the Mississippi River, Wisconsin, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana, all those states. Missouri, Minnesota, and pretty much a lot of those states right there were pretty much in the hands of them. Now, if you look at how all that pretty much, well, sits now, we look at other parts of where Canada, now the French, and part of that up there. Now, the French own part of, now, we look at other areas. Now, the 13 colonies, we all know, is pretty much, well, like New York, Pennsylvania, Virginia, not Dakotas, what am I thinking? The Carolinas, Georgia, New York, we got Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Delaware, New Jersey, Maryland, Rhode Island. But Maine, even though it wasn't a colony, it was actually owned by the British as well. Now, when the war broke out, it was all over this land. They wanted to see the territory from the French. Now, once the war ended, this map right here pretty much, well, ended. Gone. Nothing left of it. Now, they gave a order for the French-speaking Canadians up in Canada. One thing. We'll leave you alone under one condition. If all your supporters go down to Louisiana, which is all French-held territory. And so, lo and behold, during the Revolutionary War, the Canadians, and obviously we all know the well-known Cherokee tribe, which was well up against the British during the French and Indian War. They were all up against the British then. Now they're allies. They signed a treaty. This was known as the Quebec Act, because Quebec was all mostly known as Canada during that time. All of Canada was mostly known as Quebec. The Quebec Act was signed into act, meaning like anyone, if you sign any treaty against us, we will go to war. Now, with that being said, now we show what it looks like after the war is over with. Okay, now we look at this map. Okay, USA, you see the colors there, United States, then you see Louisiana Purchase, then obviously all these other characteristics, okay. Now, what do you see here? Do you see the difference between how the United States is compared to the Louisiana Purchase, to where the Spanish owned Texas when it got when Florida was annexed into the, well, this Great Secession occurred from Florida to the United States when it was all mostly known as the Florida Territory. Yeah, it happened. Only one thing. The Union, that was in 1803, shortly after the war ended. But, say the war never happened. The British would get all that land. This is pretty much what the map would look like right now. Except, instead of these dates wouldn't be happening. We wouldn't be seeing the British secession of 1818, which would be like Minnesota and North Dakota, parts of a little bit of dinky bit of South Dakota, and the Texas annexation of 1845 from Mexico, which is part of Kansas and Oklahoma. And in Mexico, there's a lot of areas that were covered then. New Mexico kind of seceded over and was annexed over. And the Spanish secession of Louisiana, 1819. But 1819, Spanish secession of Florida, over there. That went to parts of Mississippi and Alabama. And East Florida also went to the United States. Now, the only thing that Spanish keep in hold, now the little dinky part of Colorado also was part of Spanish secession. Now, in 1846, the Oregon Territory, which was consumed by Washington, Oregon, Idaho, a little bit of western Wyoming, and northwestern Montana, and a little bit of Great Britain in the northern part of Canada, which was ceded to in 1818. Now, that there was later on given back to Canada when it became a country. But in 1853, Arizona was taken from Mexico, because the Great Secession occurred in 1848 when Arizona was taken, New Mexico, Utah, Colorado, Nevada, and California were all taken. The Great Secession, the Mexican Secession, occurred. Louisiana purchase then occurred, and they purchased the area for $15 million then, which would be known as $200 million nowadays. Big difference in cash money-wise. Now we look at, and that would consist of Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas, Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, South Dakota, and a little bit of North Dakota. Now, let's not say that Great Britain owns all the other states, owns Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, and the 13 colonies, the original 13 colonies, including Maine and the other states. Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, and Mississippi, along with little bits and portions of Minnesota. Now, the French own the Louisiana Purchase, the Spanish own Texas and California, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, and a little bit of Colorado, Wyoming. Well, the Oregon Territories really isn't owned by anybody. So, that pretty much will be owned by Canada, technically. Today, that would be owned by Canada. Now you ask yourself, where is the line crossed at? It's pretty simple. And Alaska was purchased from Russia. Was purchased from Russia by the United States in 1867. The same year, Canada pretty much was independent from, not necessarily independent from Great Britain, but started signing contracts away from where their statehood was starting to become its own thing from Canada. And we're trying to become more independent from Great Britain. But yet they were still a part of Great Britain. But in 1967, 100 years later, they became its own country. But Canada has come a long way. But due to the fact that the French supporters who went all the way to Louisiana were all about being all the way down to Louisiana, is the only reason why they did not why Canada did not become part of the United States. That's the main reason why. Canada stayed out of the war. That's why Canada was not a 14. That's why there wasn't 14 colonies. Heck, we could have 14 stripes instead of 13. Canada would probably be one of the 14 instead of 13. I mean, imagine that. 14 stripes instead of 13. And we had 51 stripes instead of that. Maybe. I mean, not necessarily include if you add the states, if you add the territories and the states in Canada. That is Saskatchewan, Nova Scotia, Quebec, which is pretty much where the invention of Canada came from, was Quebec. And then you have Ontario, then you have British Columbia, and then you have a lot of territories in Canada. But let's just put it this way. Canada was pretty much, one of the top priorities that Great Britain. But when the Oregon Territory pretty much could have been another heated dispute between the two. But they drew a line saying, hey, and even the British government, American government kind of even went into British Columbia, part of the United States, and even could have even taken that part of, Canada. And heck, we could have easily gone into Canada ourselves. Voila. More territory to go into Canada, we could have easily taken Canada ourselves. But we chose not to. We drew a line right there. Canada is an American city. But Canada has been one of our top priority countries for a very long time. But they wanted to send all the French supporting people to Louisiana. Is mostly why we are where we are. We haven't really gone anywhere else in our career, which is why they left all the British supporters up in Canada, which is pretty much why we fought the way we did. And the reason why we're the country we are today is because of the good, fighting people that we have. We are known as the land of the free and the home of the brave. With that being said, I hope you like this video. And I hope if you like this video, hit the like button, hit the bell for notifications for further content. And with that being said, I'm out of here. Peace.